nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of contemplative silence for our great country, its citizens, and those serving it around the world. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Majority Leader Borgia.
Here.
Minority Leader Testa. Here. Mr. Boykin.
Here.
Mr. Burrows. Here. Mr. Gelfarb. Here. Mr. Harcum.
Here.
Mr. Jenkins.
Here.
Mr. Maizan. Here. Ms. Marcotte. Here. Ms. Parker.
Here.
Ms. Perez. Here. Ms. Shimsky.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Spreckman. Ms. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Williams. Here. Mr. Chairman.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
I'll call for a motion on the consent agenda. Majority Leader Borgia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the consent agenda with the following changes. On page 17, ID number 7425, add the Committee on Infrastructure. Later on that page, ID number 7428, add the Committee on Labor, Parks, Planning, and Housing. Item 7429, also add the Committee on Labor, Parks, Planning, and Housing. Number 19 on that page, 7433, add the Committee on Community Services. Number 21 on that page, 7438, add the Committee on Infrastructure. And the next one, 7439, also add the Committee on Infrastructure. Number 25 on that page, ID number 7449, please add Legislator Boykin as a co-sponsor and add the Committee on Infrastructure. Later on that page, 7451, number 27, add the Committee on Environment and Energy. On page 21, number 33, ID number 7459, remove the Committee on Budget and Appropriations and add instead the Committee on Environment and Energy and the Committee on Infrastructure. Next page, number 42, ID number 7468, add Committee of Energy and Environment. Page 24, number 51, item 7477, add Budget and Appropriations. Next item, 7478, add Environment and Energy. And I believe that that is it.
All right, Mr. Testa. Okay. And Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Excellent. So with no objections, we will move the consent agenda as corrected or amended. Minutes approval at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hereby move the minutes of the Monday, August 4th, 2014, 10 a.m. Board of Legislators meeting.
Mr. Testa? Mr. Mazzano?
Yes.
Okay, with no objections, minutes approved. Madam Clerk, please read the rules for public comment.
Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. I'll call the names of the speakers and ask that you please come down the aisle to my left behind the black ropes. The first speaker is Murray Bowden, and then Regina Riley.
She's joining me today because we greet each other when we come in civilly, say hello. We don't agree on a lot of issues, but we say hello to each other. After I left the meeting this afternoon, I went over to Valhalla of the nursery, Rosedale in Green Valley. I was going to buy my wife a hydrangea. And going past the Westchester Fire Station, Police Academy, there were these groups of young people in gray uniforms running past. The road was blocked by a police car. Well, groups of about 20 people in gray uniforms with a Sam Bowie reflective belt on. You know that reflective thing that goes around like this? So each of those, I assume they were recruits, had on it, and there were about 15 groups, 10 groups. Leading each group was, I presume, an instructor in black uniform. No belt, no identification, and no reflective anything. Now, it seems to me that's pretty ludicrous. An instructor teaching young people who have on a correct reflective belt, he won't wear one. I've raised this issue before about safety, because every police officer who doesn't have a reflective vest on and gets hit in the line of traffic costs me money, costs the county paying for it. I've raised this issue a number of times. I was recently doing some work at the Westchester County Airport about road lines, and I had the assistance of a very nice Westchester police sergeant. We met 2 days. He leaned into my car when I was standing in front of the terminal. The first day, the two people directing traffic had on vests. He didn't. He's a sergeant. And the second day, we talked again. Nobody had on reflective vests. Now, this sergeant knows me because a couple of years ago, I met with the chief of police in the headquarters with, 4 or 5 senior officers in white shirts, and I was discussing why Westchester County Police didn't wear the vest, as required by law in most circumstances except one exemption. He knew who I was because he was on detached duty that day, and I was disagreed with by the union representative who said whatever, all of which was not true. So whose responsibility is to follow the law and tell, it's certainly not the chief's because it's a union problem, that takes it out of his hands. That puts it in your hands? I don't know, the person who's in charge of public safety is reading his notes.
Thank you, sir.
Regina Riley.
My name is Regina Riley. I'm from the 9th Legislative District in town of the unincorporated area of Krugers. Governor Cuomo, Senators Latimer, Carlucci, Stewart Cousins, Klein, Hassel Thompson are all representing part of Westchester. And of course, they're all running for election, and Cuomo for the whole state. The fact is, they are also running on women's health, and they tend to say that abortion choice is synonymous with women's health. And also, it's synonymous with the Women's Equality Act. Now, the last time this was voted on a year ago, or a little over a year ago, all 9 of the points were passed by the Senate as separate laws, and the only one that was not passed was the 10th one. And the reason wasn't because of women's health, but because of the extreme danger that was involved in this, and I have reiterated, and I'll do it again. The 10th section of the Women's Equality Act, for which Cuomo and these Hassel Thompson, Klein, Stewart Cousins, Carlucci, Latimer are all on board for, and were either the traditional authors or co-authors of this bill, it wasn't passed because the 10th section would let non-doctors abort babies right up until the time of delivery. Doctors have testified that after late-term abortions, there is absolutely no reason to have an abortion, and it's dangerous for the mother, of course, obviously for the child, it's the end of the life. But it's not for women's health that chemical and surgical abortions will be done by non-doctors. Surgical abortions by non-doctors. That's not women's health. It's not for women's protection that the 10th section of the Women's Equality Amendment would decriminalize abortion so that predators and abortionists involved in forced and coerced abortions face no jail time, so that Dr. Gosnell, who's doing life imprisonment in Pennsylvania, he'd be scot-free. And right now, this bill would be inviting Dr. Gosnell's, that butcher, and people like him to this state. The woman would have no penal laws to mete out consequences for this no longer crime of unspeakable violation of herself and her baby. It's not for women's health that suspected rape, incest, and statutory rape of a minor is not mandated to be reported by Planned Parenthood, who is behind this 10th section.
Right.
All of those people need to be gotten out of office because of what they're doing to women. Has nothing to do with their health, but it has everything to do with peril to them. Thank you.
Janice Lubin Kirschner.
Hi, I'd like to thank Mike Kaplowitz and the Board of Legislators for the opportunity to tell you how wonderful it has been to work with you on intergenerational programming. As you know, intergenerational work is a win-win. It's economical, it's socially better for the community, it's culturally advantageous, and physically people are healthier. And as you know, we won the 2013, Westchester County, I should say, won the 2013 Best Intergenerational Community nationally from Generations United and MetLife. And that's a designation that we really are very, very proud to have. We want to thank you for consideration of the resolution, because it hasn't been passed yet, but once it's passed, hopefully, we will thank you for passage of the resolution. We look forward to strengthening Westchester through policies that are inclusive of all generations. And we invite you to our Intergen Fest on September 20th at the Greenberg Library at 11 o'clock, where hopefully we will present that resolution. I want to just let you know that we have Carol Flickinger here from Family Service Society of Yonkers, who's our director of the Kinship Support Program. And we also have Dorothy Thompson, who is raising, Dorothy, raise your hand. We are raising 5 grandchildren, 2 of them who are with her today, Tanika Banks and Aza Nazaya. Say hello. So we are really pleased. As you know, kinship families have their own special needs and their special concerns, and the Board of Legislators has always been supportive of that and recognizes their struggles. So I am Janice Lubin Kirschner, by the way. I'm with JCY Westchester Community Partners, and we bring over 400 volunteers into the schools every year to work one-on-one, teaching children to read throughout Westchester County. And we have 6 intergenerational programs, so this is very close to my heart. It's really a wonderful way to include everybody and to give back and to volunteer and to do service, those things that make us feel blessed and whole and spiritually fulfilled. So on that, I'd like to just say thank you very much for all of your work and for your support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have no other cards.
We'll close the public comment section of the meeting. It's not yet 7:30, Madam Clerk, so perhaps we can proceed on to items of unfinished business.
Sorry. The first 3 items under unfinished business were all held over from the August 4th, 2014 regular board meeting and appear here as items of unfinished business for committee referral only. Item 7380 is a resolution to set a public hearing on a local law amending the laws of Westchester County in relation to the Board of Acquisition and Contract, to be referred to the Committees on Legislation and Budget and Appropriations.
Long roll call.
Ms. Borgia?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Boykin? Mr. Burrows? Mr. Gelfarb? Mr. Harkam?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano? Ms. Marcotte? Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Perez? Ms. Shimsky?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Williams? Yes. 16-0, it will be referred to.
Legislatively Freudian, thank you very much.
Item 7381 is the local law amending the laws of Westchester County in relation to the Board of Acquisition and Contract, to be referred to the Committees on Legislation and Budget and Appropriations.
Without objection, we'll take the previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7368 is a memorandum of legislation recommending the creation of a 10-year lease with Central Amusements, Inc. and Standard Amusements for the management of Playland Amusement Area, to be referred to the Committees on Legislation and Budget and Labor, Parks, Planning, and Housing.
Without objection, we'll take the previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. The remaining items under unfinished business were all held over from the August 4th, 2014 regular board meeting and appear here as items of unfinished business for action. Item 7183 from the Committee on Appointments is a resolution appointing Renee Atayan as a member of the Westchester County Board of Ethics for the term August 4, 2014 to December 31, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Boyd.
Yes, so moved, Mr. Chairman. And let me say that you know that my Committee on Appointments is working very hard to get an ethics board that's legally constituted and appropriately confirmed. And we've sent up information asking for who are the full members of the board, and we're waiting to hear from the Executive's office. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Jenkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this particular item, I know that there's been several discussions about specifically the ethics board composition itself. And there are some significant issues that I know we're trying to deal with through charter revision, legislation committee, different potential modifications that would be helpful in resolving some of this situation. I know I was at the meeting where this particular candidate was present, and certainly we were clear in reading, again, the charter provisions as they exist right now that require a two-step verification process, a qualification process. I hope as we continue deliberating on these particular items that we will resolve this particular issue, because it is a problem, a continuing problem. The New York State public officers law is pretty clear on how appointments are made and how vacancies occur. And they don't occur at the end of a term. They actually occur when the next person is qualified. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do this. This particular candidate, as it comes from the county executive, certainly met that initial criteria. But again, from the long-term basis and being able to move forward and vote on specific items without having the confirmation of the board, one of the concerns that I know all of us have is what has happened at the federal level when the president's appointments, specifically to the National Labor Review Board, were struck down by the Supreme Court, and all of the decisions they made vacated. So it's something that we need to keep in mind as we continue forward in trying to resolve that particular process. Thank you.
Burrows?
I just want to say a comment about the person who is being appointed for the Ethics Committee. It's unfortunate, I think, that it was put over from last time. It's a person of high standing, somebody who is an excellent community activist, somebody who's involved in politics, somebody who ran for the state assembly, active in the community. I believe she has unquestionable ethics, and she'll be a vital member to the committee, and that's really what this is all about. And I'm glad that she has finally passed through. Thank you.
Colleagues, any comments? Why don't we do a long roll call?
Ms. Borgia,
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Mr. Boykin,
Yes.
Mr. Burrows, Mr. Gelfarb, Mr. Harkam,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano, Ms. Marcotte, Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Ms. Perez, Ms. Shimsky,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Approved 16-0. Item 7316 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development and Capital Projects, and Infrastructure is a bond act amendment authorizing the county to issue additional bonds in the amount of $1,650,000 to finance capital project B042A roof replacement program, various locations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to be recommitting this item and the next three items when they come up to the Infrastructure Committee. We had asked for detailed cost breakdowns on each of these projects, and the information we received back was pretty much non-existent. We are going to bring it back to committee, and hopefully we will get more detail this time, and then we'll be happy to have them voted out. Thank you.
Okay, so recommittal on item 7316. Let's ask Ms. Marcotte, recommittal to yours or to keep it parallel at this point? Okay, and Mr. Smith, the same? Okay, excellent.
Item 7323 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development and Capital Projects, and Infrastructure is a bond act amendment in the total amount of $1,550,000, which includes $250,000 in previously authorized bonds of the county to finance a component of capital project B042B roof replacement program, various locations.
Recommit.
Legislators as well? Ms. Marcotte, Mr. Smith, thank you.
Item 7324 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development and Capital Projects, and Infrastructure, a bond act amendment in the total amount of $2,600,000, which includes $200,000 in previously authorized bonds of the county to finance a component of capital project B042B roof replacement program, various locations.
Recommit for the reasons stated under 7316.
Item 7325 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development and Capital Projects, and Infrastructure, a bond act in the amount of $810,000 to finance a component of capital project B042B roof replacement program, various locations.
Recommit for the reasons stated in 7316.
Ms. Marcotte, Mr. Smith, the same? Okay. Why don't we finish unfinished business, and then we'll move on to the public hearings.
Item 7330 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development and Capital Projects, and Infrastructure, a resolution finding that there will be no significant adverse impact on the environment from capital project B0109 salt storage shed Valhalla.
Ms. Marcotte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to move this for the Budget Committee, and I'll turn it over to Economic Development.
Mr. Smith.
As discussed and approved in committee, move it on to infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This and the next two or three resolutions, pieces of legislation, involve the construction of a salt shed on the Valhalla campus. This shed is operationally necessary, as the prior location in Harrison was not going to work due to lack of access to tractor trailers and lack of capacity. The Valhalla campus is also a more centralized site. We had also asked for detailed cost breakdowns for the salt shed. The information we got was somewhat incomplete, but at the very least we got enough information to know that there's been serious and substantial design work already commenced on this. So for that reason, I was willing to move it forward tonight, and I hope my colleagues will agree with us and support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues? Comments? Let's take a long roll call.
Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Boykin.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Gelfarb. Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano. Ms. Marcotte.
Aye.
Ms. Parker.
Yes.
Ms. Perez. Ms. Shimsky. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Approved 16-0. Item 7318 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development, and Capital Projects and Infrastructure. An act amending the 2014 County Capital Budget Appropriations for Capital Project B0109, Salt Storage Shed, Valhalla Campus.
Ms. Markup?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to move it for budget and turn it over to Economic Development.
Mr. Smith? Ms. Shimsky?
As previously discussed, so moved.
Without objection, we'll take the previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7319 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development and Capital Projects and Infrastructure, a bond act authorizing the issuance of $2,350,000 in bonds to finance Capital Project B0109, Salt Storage Shed, Valhalla Campus.
And Ms. Markup?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So moved for the Budget Committee. I'll turn it over to Legislator Smith's committee.
Smith?
As discussed and approved in committee, has moved to infrastructure.
Ms. Shimsky?
As previously discussed, so moved.
Previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0.
Madam Chair, a note the time after 7:30. Shall we move back to public hearings?
So I'd like to make a motion that we suspend, excuse me, thank you, Legislator Williams, the regular order of business for the purpose of conducting 2 public hearings.
Madam Clerk?
Excuse me, for the purposes of conducting 4 public
public
hearings.
Madam Clerk?
Notice of tonight's public hearings were published in the Journal News. I have proof of publication, which is available for inspection in my office. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes, and I ask that you please come down the aisle to my left behind the black ropes. First public hearing is from the Committees on Infrastructure, Environment and Energy, and Budget and Appropriations on the proposed modification to the Sawmill Valley Sanitary Sewer District by the removal of 1 parcel of property, 35 Hardscrabble Hill Road. Mr. Chairman, I have no cards.
Excellent.
Move that this public hearing be closed.
Second. Second public hearing is from the Committees on Legislation and Budget and Appropriations on a local law amending subdivision 1 of section 167.61 of the laws of Westchester County to require the county executive to submit and file proposed county budget for capital purposes not later than October 15th of each year, and to submit and file a proposed county budget for current purposes not later than November 10th of each year. Mr. Chairman, I have no cards.
Move that this public hearing be closed.
So ordered and just noted, never have the legislature spent so much time on an item that it brings out so few individuals to talk about it. So,
The third public hearing is from the Committees on Infrastructure, Environment and Energy, and Legislation, a local law amending subdivision 8 of section 836.42 of the laws of Westchester County to limit the circumstances under which vehicles which are not high-mileage vehicles, electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, or alternative fuel vehicles may be purchased by the County of Westchester. Mr. Chairman, I have no cards.
Madam Leader,
Move that this public hearing be closed.
it's ordered.
The last public hearing submitted by the Board of Legislators is a public hearing on Capital Project WD 103, County Water District Number 1, alternate water supply, which represents an increase and improvements of district facilities. The first speaker is Mary Ann Vogel. And the next speaker is Alfred Gata.
Welcome.
My name is Marion Vogel. I'm the Water Superintendent of the City of Mount Vernon. I would like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board for giving us the opportunity to present our position. Mount Vernon has always been in full compliance with the U.S. EPA's Long-Term Enhanced Surface Water Treatment Rule, LT2. Our two connections take treated water which meets all the requirements of LT2 from New York City's Catskill and Delaware aqueducts. But the water supplied from Westchester County Water District No. 1's Kensico Reservoir connection to the Upper Kensico line does not meet the EPA's LT2 requirements. This does not affect Mount Vernon since we are supplied from Shaft 22 via the Lower Kensico. In order to meet LT2 requirements for water supplied for the Upper Kensico connection, the county has now proposed installing 2 packaged UV plants that they claim would be able to supply the water demands of both the Upper and Lower Kensico. However, there are no records to document that Water District 1's Kensico Reservoir connection has ever supplied the city of Mount Vernon. Additionally, providing the Lower Kensico with County Water District Kensico Reservoir water would only address the emergency scenario of no water supply from Shaft 22. Based on our experience and New York City's redundant supply to Shaft 22, it is supplied from both the north end and the south end. This is the least likely emergency scenario on the Lower Kensico. Far more likely is a break in the over 125-year-old Kensico line. To date, we have experienced a number of short-term shutdowns of the Lower Kensico that have resulted in low water pressure and reduced fire flow availability. A major break resulting in a long-term shutdown of the Lower Kensico would create significant water supply problems. Therefore, the UV facilities on the Upper Kensico would be of no significant benefit to us and would not address our most pressing need. For that reason, we should not be forced to pay for the project. For many years, Mount Vernon has been asking the county for a southern connection to the Kensico line to ensure that we have water in the event of a break between Shaft 22 and our connections. In the past, the county always insisted that such a connection be paid for by Yonkers and Mount Vernon, since we alone would benefit. If that's the case, then Mount Vernon should not pay for any projects on the north, since we will not benefit from that work. At this time, the county is giving lip service with no definite commitment to a southern connection, and there has been no real progress on that front. The city of Mount Vernon is requesting that any proposed legislation addressing compliance with LT2 regulations include provisions for the funding and installation of a south side connection. Mount Vernon's participation in the funding of the Upper Kensico project is contingent on funding the south side connection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alfred Gata.
Welcome.
I'm Al Gatta. I'm the village manager in Scarsdale. The ultraviolet treatment and compliance with the LT2 rule has evolved now into 2 issues. The first one is before you tonight, is the authorization of a project to install ultraviolet treatment facilities at the Orchard Street pump station and the Central Avenue pump station. The RU report, which was received a couple of days ago by the county, indicates that the installations at these 2 pump stations would bring the water district into compliance with the LT2 rule. The county should move forward with the authorization of the project. The second issue has gained life because of the length of time it took the county to arrive at a solution which complies with the LT2 rule. Because of this delay and subsequent reconsideration of a plan that had been previously agreed upon by the 4 communities and the county. The 4 communities make up the district, and the county are members of the district, with the county being the district. We are in our current position relative to EPA and the U.S. Attorney action. Let me try to clarify that. Because of the change in the plan that we had a couple of years ago, which all 4 communities and the county agreed to go to this more efficient, lower costing plan, we are now in this position with the EPA and the U.S. Attorney action. The EPA action is whether the improvements at the 2 pump stations that I mentioned previously would meet the LT2 rule, and the U.S. Attorney action is, believe it or not, after 50 years of experience, what constitutes water district number 1. The agreed upon plan by the 4 communities in the county involved not only a long-term solution for future anticipated full treatment of water, but also resolved the long-sought and needed south connection that you just heard from Mount Vernon, and that would be south of Shaft 22, which would backfeed the cities of Mount Vernon and Yonkers in an emergency. The revised plan for meeting the LT2 rule involves a much less costly approach, which would be undertaken if this board approves the project and if the New York State Department of Health and the federal EPA approve the plan. Again, the September 4, 2014 report prepared by Rue Associates, which was commissioned by the U.S. Attorney, indicated that the installation of the ultraviolet treatment facilities at the 2 pump stations would satisfy the rule. County leadership is needed to bring us all together. County leadership is needed to take a longer range look, and I urge the county board to urge its administration to make such a look. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have no other cards.
I move that this public hearing be closed.
So ordered.
Brings us to standing committees. Item 7181 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Public Safety, an act authorizing the county, acting through its Department of Public Safety Services, to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with 1 or more Westchester municipal corporations and Putnam County in order for public safety employees from such municipalities to utilize the county's firing range in Valhalla for firearms training.
Ms. Marco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So moved for budget, and I'll turn it over to public safety.
Mr. Gelfarb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick correction. I believe that, in fact, this one should reflect Act number 7181 should be 9A between 1 or Westchester municipal corporations and the county. In other words, I don't think the county should be referenced in number 7181 or 7181. In any event, the Public Safety Committee fully vetted this agreement along with the Budget Committee, and we determined this agreement is in the best interest of the county as well as of our local municipalities. The idea behind this is to allow the local municipalities to use the county's firearms training range to train public safety officers from other police departments. The price has been worked out. In addition, the local municipalities are eligible to receive a credit against the price of the range to the extent that they provide instructors themselves. So we've had a successful relationship with our many municipalities over the years, and it's the best interest of the county to continue this.
Excellent. Colleagues, on this item before us? All right, let's take a long roll call.
Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Mr. Boykin.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Gelfarb. Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano. Ms. Marcotte.
Aye.
Ms. Parker.
Yes.
Ms. Perez. Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Approved 16-0. Item 7399 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Public Safety, an act authorizing the county through its Department of Public Safety Services to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with Putnam County in order for public safety employees to utilize the county's firing range in Valhalla for firearms training.
Ms. Marcotte.
Thank you. So moved for budget, and I'll turn it over to public safety.
Gelfer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this agreement has been thoroughly vetted by both the Public Safety Committee as well as the Budget Committee. Based upon our review, we've undertaken adjustment of the price to be charged to Putnam County in the interest of shared services and government efficiencies. It's in the interest of the taxpayers of Westchester County to allow excess capacity at the firing range to be used by our colleagues from Putnam. In addition, the Putnam County Public Safety Department can also receive a credit to the extent it provides instructors. All in all, this is a good deal for the taxpayers of Westchester. We're pleased to work with our colleagues in Putnam. Accordingly, so moved.
Excellent. Colleagues on this item? Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I wanted to thank both the Chair of Budget and Appropriations, Ms. Marcotte, and certainly Public Safety, Mr. Gelfarb, on this particular item. This was before us a few months ago, and there was a request to sever, if you will, the new portion with Putnam County. That was an addition. We had a long-fought conversation with the local municipalities on utilizing the police range several years ago, and it was a very intense situation with the police chiefs from the local municipalities being clear that they shouldn't be charged a specific level, and the Department of Public Safety worked out an arrangement that was satisfactory both to the County of Westchester as well as to the local municipalities, since those folks in those municipalities had already paid for the facility. The addition of Putnam County, which certainly as a neighbor and persons that we have partnered with on many occasions, was necessary to have a different payment structure. And through both of the committees, the work was diligent, working with the departments to come up with some fees that not only took into consideration the chargeback for the people of Westchester, but I also believe that they also included the benefits costs for the officers and people that needed to be present. So this is certainly a great modification that protects the Westchester taxpayers as well as gets more utilization from the facility that the county taxpayers have paid for. So I'm certainly supportive of this, and again, I want to thank all the committees and all the members for working through this to get to this place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other colleagues on this? Otherwise, that objection will take the previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7222 from the Committees on Infrastructure, Environment and Energy, and Budget and Appropriations. A resolution finding there will be no significant adverse impact on the environment from the removal of one parcel property from the Sawmill Valley Sanitary Sewer District, 35 Hardscrabble Hill Road.
Ms. Marcotte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So moved for budget, and I will turn it over to Legislator Shimsky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is a routine sewer district removal according to the Department of Environmental Facilities. This property is neither hooked up to the sewer system nor has a reasonable likelihood of becoming hooked up. So for that reason, we're taking them out of the mix. Tax impact is minimal, and maybe an offsetting new house somewhere will bring us the money back. So moved.
I have a couple we can think about. Ms. Parker.
In the spirit of there being a Giants game tonight, I'll just concur with my colleague.
In that same spirit, any other colleagues? Seeing none, take the previous long roll call without objection. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7223 from the Committees on Infrastructure, Environment and Energy, and Budget and Appropriations. An act to modify the Sawmill Valley Sanitary Sewer District by the removal of one parcel of property located in the town of Mount Pleasant.
Ms. Marcotte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So moved for budget, and I'll turn it over to Economic Development.
Economic Development, yes. No, actually, infrastructure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Shimsky.
Give me the wrong one. Take it away, Mary Jane.
As previously discussed, so moved.
Okay, and
I have the wrong.
So moved.
excellent. Without objection, we'll take the previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7229 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations, Economic Development and Capital Projects, and Infrastructure, an amended bond act authorizing the issuance of up to $9,200,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project WD 001 Eastview Distribution Chamber.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We had already had some previous discussions earlier this evening that we were going to over this in light of its role in coming up with a global solution for our Water District 1 and related issues. But based on some conversations that the Majority Whip had this evening with Mount Vernon and Scarsdale, it has been suggested that it might be best to recommit at this point because there will be adjustments in a number of pieces of legislation necessary, but that does not suggest that we don't have the desire to move this through as quickly as possible. The people of Water District 1 have waited long enough, and so have the Giants fans. So,
As is your right, Ms. Marcotte, recommit then correspondingly, and Mr. Smith, recommit as well. Okay. Number 5, 7229, recommitted.
Item 7351, from the Committees on Infrastructure and Environment and Energy, an act authorizing the approval of the Stormwater Reconnaissance Plan for the Croton River and Inland Long Island Sound dated July 2014, prepared by the Commissioner of Planning in compliance with the Article 3-A County Stormwater Management Law.
Ms. Shimsky.
okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This represents the Stormwater Reconnaissance Plan for our last two watersheds in Westchester County. The last two were done together because the exact same list of municipalities is involved with each one. Once again, as with the other ones, there is some interest expressed among some of these municipalities in participating in the underlying plan, which would allow our municipalities to seek funding opportunities from the county for their stormwater remediation projects. Appearing before us were Abraham Zabrand, Leo Wegman, and Dan O'Connor from Croton-on-Hudson, as well as Dan Welch from Lewisboro. The process is the same as we've discussed over time. Flood-prone areas must be included in the list in the reconnaissance plan in order to be considered for funding. They don't necessarily have to be classified as high risk, they just need to be on the list. After we vote, the planning department is going to reach out to the municipalities involved, telling them what's involved with seeking funding and encouraging any interested municipalities to begin discussions with the planning department. They will work with the municipalities on identifying risks and crafting projects and plans that will solve the problem or alleviate the problem. Adding new flood-prone areas is provided for by the procedures of the planning department in the fall of this year, and then annually after that, the planning department will seek revisions to the reconnaissance plan from all of the county's municipalities. So far, there has been interest in other watersheds as well as this one, and those conversations are beginning. Among the discussions we had is, as well as these local projects, we need proper stream and storm gauge systems so we can analyze the probable effect of any projects. Because we don't have that information, projects that are designed to hold water back will be easier for our planning department to approve. Of course, now that all of the plans will have been approved, assuming that all goes according to plan tonight, we will get to see how many municipalities are interested, how much money they're seeking. We currently have $15 million in the pot. As I understand it, at least for the next couple years, the plan is to add an additional $5 million per year. I think, at least for the next few years, that will probably suffice. But of course, as our flooding problems get worse, we'll have to reevaluate as time goes on. And on the basis of that, so moved.
Excellent. And we have Ms.
Yeah.
Parker.
I just want to add that it's very satisfying to have the last of the 5 watershed plans before you. And I would like to acknowledge the good work of my colleague, Mary Jane Shimsky, who's done a phenomenal job with construction. And also the work of Ed Burrows, our planning commissioner, and David Kavinga. They did a phenomenal job in providing the municipalities with a wonderful map from the questionnaires that they had provided. So with that, I'd say so moved.
Excellent. Any other colleagues at this point? Mr. Harkam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly want to thank Legislator Shimsky, Legislator Parker for driving this process and getting us through the last of the reconnaissance plans. You know, when we originally passed this enabling legislation several years ago, we envisioned this is what the appropriate role of the county planning department is. This is the strength of county government. It's regional planning, it's watershed planning, and it's enabling us for the first time to coordinate funding, coordinate planning, and work with our local partners and our state and our federal partners to address the watershed-wide and the regional-wide flooding program problems that impact even up north, the supposed headwaters of many of these. But even with the green space we have up where we are, you know, Mount Kisco was under 2 feet of water throughout Irene. So it happens everywhere. It's a persistent problem. And while this will not cure it countywide, it's certainly a great, impactful start. Thank you.
Very good. Any colleagues? Mr. Jenkins.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and certainly to add on to the congratulations and to the hard work for not only Legislator Parker and her role in environment and energy, but specifically for Legislator Mary Jane Shimsky and the work that she's done in this reconnaissance plan. Mr. Harkam just was pointing out, Mr. Chairman, about the work that the county planning department should be doing in this particular regard. You know, Mary Jane Shimsky, over the last few years of this particular legislation, since it was enabled by her predecessor and actually followed up by her, and certainly with Mr. Nona at that point in time, and the chair of legislation, to come up with something that made some sense. The fact of the matter is that the administration has not been fully holding its end up on this. The legislature, which does not have the staff to support these efforts, whether it's for the SWAB, the BRAB, or whatever other acronyms that we have in this, are doing a tremendous job. And Legislator Shimsky has been the spearhead in that particular item. So I'm hopeful that, you know, as these plans continue to get approved, this is the final one for the reconnaissance plan, but now there's specific activities that need to follow, and I'm hopeful that we'll have the cooperation, as you've asked for, from the administration, specifically the planning department, to lead that effort, as they have the full staff to do that, and the Board of Legislators simply does not. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Other colleagues? Seeing no other comment, let's take the previous long roll call. Without objection, so ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7290 from the Committees on Community Services and Seniors and Constituencies, a proposed resolution establishing cross-age collaboration policy in Westchester County to consider all services and policies that promote purposeful engagement of all generations.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say how delighted I am that we finally have endorsed and we are passing this resolution this evening to encourage the county executive, all commissioners and department heads to use the ideals and principles to select programs and contracts and projects that will include Westchester residents of all ages, so that we can have a true cross-generational communication and interaction, education and advocacy and volunteerism in this county. We pride ourselves on the diversiveness of the county. However, we know that in many instances, people are sort of locked into their communities without opportunities to meet one another and to deal with various age groups. And it is so very important not only to the elderly, but also to young people, so that they may receive the wisdom and the benefit of socialization and cross-pollination with the older generation. So I am delighted that this is happening, and I thank my colleague, Legislator Spreckman, for her role in this as well. So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Spreckman is not here this evening, but we wish her well in her medical endeavors. But Mr. Boykin ably stepped in for her today as chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I, too, am very pleased that we've moved this resolution forward. In our public comments this evening, we heard a speaker who talked about it. She was at the public hearings that we had before the committees, and it is really great that we are continuing to move forward with the leadership that Westchester has already had in this area of cross-age collaborations. So we want to move forward in everything that we do, in services, in projects, and also in new programs, so that we can make sure that we have things that are appropriate for all our ages, and that cross-pollination, which is so important for this county, for the young, the middle-aged, and for our older adults in this county. So that is what this resolution is all about, to really memorialize and to put in policies that we're already doing, but to memorialize it, to make it an absolute part of everything that we do. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you. Colleagues, any
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I just wanted to comment on Janice Lubin-Kirshner and certainly and Carolyn from Family Services of Yonkers, that one of the things that was important tonight in her discussion and when she introduced them is for us thinking as we consider this resolution, and certainly I am in support of this resolution, that we consider the point that she raised about grand families, and in our grand family situations and kinship guardian, which our county has consistently addressed. So in all of the things that we do as we move forward, we're passing a resolution, should it get passed tonight, to suggest that we are going to consider our senior community and grand families as we move forward. So I'm hopeful that we'll do that as we continue consider any legislation that may come before us. Thank you.
excellent. Any colleagues on this item? Seeing none, we'll take the previous long roll call without objection. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7314 from the Committees on Community Services and Budget and Appropriations. An act recommending a pay plan amendment in the Health Department and Medical Examiner's Office.
Recommit, Mr. Chair, for further information.
Recommitted.
Item 7489 from the Committees on Community Services and Budget and Appropriations. An act recommending a pay plan amendment in the Health Department for the Director of Division and Chief of Section positions.
Ms. Markup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was discussed at length in the Budget and Appropriations Committee as well as Community Services. I'm happy to move it, and I'll turn it over to Legislator Williams to tell you more about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This act will provide an opportunity for the Health Department of Westchester County to recruit division and chief of section positions, which are positions which people or man our clinic facilities. For the past 3+ years, we've been trying to recruit able physicians for these posts, and we found that in most instances the salaries are seriously under what is paid in similar types of governmental situations for physicians. So by providing this pay plan amendment, we'll be able to recruit 1 or 2 positions to fulfill the clinic requirements and provide the very necessary and important medical and medical care that we so desperately need in our clinics. So moved, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Colleagues on this item? Seeing none, Mr. Smith? Almost got you there.
Almost. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm watching the score, so I'm not going to say.
Don't tell.
I'm not. But on this particular item, there was a considerable discussion in committee today, and the ability for the administration to have both options, and your work, Mr. Chairman, with the other leaders on our board to try to make sure that those options were available. This particular legislation, based on all the things that we heard from our budget director, Mr. Soul, where there was a significant shortfall of $7.2 million, which he suggested that was going to be filled through job vacancies. I'm not quite sure exactly how that's going to work, but that was his suggestion, and expense reduction. That it was kind of unconscionable to talk about this particular item of increasing the salaries for the heads of those two departments. The other issue, which is a significant one, which I believe that, as discussed in committee today and over the last month or so, that needs to be addressed in a holistic manner. If there's an imbalance in our management structure, then that needs to come from the administration and dealt with in a holistic way, in a global way, not in a piecemeal way. So I'm glad, and I will be supporting this legislation for the specific doctors, as Chair Williams has described, which is a complete disparity, and going into our flu season with all the things that we have going on with the young folks. We need our health centers fully staffed, and those doctors need to be there. But for the people that have taken these jobs and the roles, like any of all of us, we know what the salary is when we take it, and we should not expect any increases mid-year. And considering the county's financial situation with the $7.2 million deficit, it was just not conscionable. So I'm glad the administration decided to move away from that, and I will be supporting this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other colleagues on this item? Seeing none, without objection, we'll take the previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7408 from the Committees on Labor, Parks, Planning and Housing, and Budget Appropriations, a resolution approving the allocation of $373,000 from the county's acquisition and rehabilitation revolving loan fund program for capital project BPL 50-602, Route 22, North Salem.
Ms. Marco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to move this for the Budget Committee, and I will turn it over to Legislator Harcum.
Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chair, this item was a revision, actually, of a resolution this board passed at the last meeting. This is a revolving loan fund that we set up from BPL 50. This project in North Salem originally asked for $440,000, depending upon or pending a certain variance from the North Salem Zoning Board. They got a variance, but it was a different variance, so it changed the plan a little bit. It's now asking for less money, down to $373,000, but in order to be accurate and compliant, especially with the new zoning variance, we need to revise the resolution, and that's what's before us today. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum, for your work on this, and Ms. Marcotte for your work as well. On this item, any discussion? Seeing none, without objection, we'll take the previous long roll call. So ordered.
Approved 16-0. Item 7456 from the Committees on Labor, Parks, Planning and Housing, and Budget and Appropriations, a resolution approving the allocation of $568,325 from the county's acquisition and rehabilitation revolving loan fund program for capital project BPL 50-2 Spruce Road, South Salem.
Yes, Ms. Marco.
Thank you. Happy to move it for budget, and I'll turn it over to Legislator Harcum.
Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The good news is this is our first expenditure of BPL 50 funds in Lewisboro. I know the Planning Department has been working hard to find affordable housing sites in all of the targeted communities for the housing settlement, and this is the first time they've targeted one in Lewisboro. Again, this is part of the revolving loan fund. Part of this will be a grant, part of this will be a loan. It's a little bit more expensive than normal. That's reflective of both the higher land costs of northern Westchester and the extensive renovation that the house requires. We did have in-depth discussion on that, the pros and cons versus a tear down and a rebuild versus renovation. It was determined that the planning department felt it would be much cheaper to do the renovation versus a tear down, not to mention the year or two of permits in the process. So with that said, I'm happy to move this for Labor Parks, Housing and Planning. Thank you.
Excellent. Colleagues on this item? Mr. Jenkins?
Thank you. On this one, Mr. Harcum, we had today Joan Arnold, who has been a tremendous housing advocate for many years, and she described some of the challenges that they had between this and the other item that we had in front of us. And they were trying to, basically, this is a significant investment, but it will bring some additional affordable housing, but as well they tried to do some accessibility apartments, some accessible apartments, accessory apartments on this particular item. So I'm looking forward as we continue to try to do that. That was an initiative in the past to try to increase the affordable housing stock through existing opportunities. But in addition to that, give the homeowner an opportunity to get some much needed revenue to help bring the cost down even further. So this is certainly the first foray, at least in Lewisboro, but I know that we're going to continue to do that. The Deputy Commissioner showed us today that this is the first of many that we should expect. Thank you.
Colleagues, Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I've said a number of times before, the biggest impediment in Westchester County to affordable housing, I believe, is the affordable housing settlement itself. We had testimony today regarding this particular project. It is very expensive. And I can't help but feel that we're trying to pound a round peg into a square hole. A lot of effort, no disrespect to our planning department, who works very hard. And we're taking solace in the fact that we are hitting one of the targeted communities, Lewisboro, for the first time. But I think among all 17, no matter how we feel and how people in the past voted regarding the affordable housing settlement, I think the 17 of us can uniformly agree that there is a need for affordable housing and fair housing in Westchester County. I don't think there's any dispute in that regard. When we put so much dollars, so much emphasis into one particular project in one particular area, we can't help but affect a lot more families and a lot more people. And I think that's one of the crying shames of what this settlement's all about. We're focused more on the geography than helping more people. So for that matter, I'll be voting against this item, despite the fact that I believe our planning department continues to do a good job and continues to move towards the 750 that's mandated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other colleagues? Discussion. Let's do a long roll call then.
Ms. Borgia?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Boykin?
Yes.
Mr. Burrows? Mr. Gelfarb?
Aye.
Mr. Harcum?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano? Ms. Marcotte?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Approved 15-1. Item 6610. Note this item appears here as an item for consideration by the full board pursuant to Rule 7 of the County Board Rules. A proposed local law amending Chapter 107 of the laws of Westchester by the addition of Section 107.22 requiring the county board authorized by act any waiver request made by an appointing authority in relation to the employment of any retired person.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommit this item for purposes of further committee discussion. For the purposes of committee discussion.
Ms. Shimsky?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask for a unanimous consent to consider the resolution that copies of which have been deposited on the desks of all the legislators. This is the authorization for road repairs pursuant to Section 8 of RB 169, which we approved at our, I believe, our August meeting.
Okay, very good. Asking for unanimous consent. I'll do it the opposite if anybody objects. Otherwise, we will accept unanimous consent to put the item before us, and so moved. Okay, good. The item is before us. Madam Clerk, have a caption here? We do not. The item is, Ms. Shimsky, you want to describe it for us?
Okay, thank you very much. This is a resolution specifying the roads to be repaired pursuant to Bond Act number 2014-149, another way of saying RB 169. As many of you will recall, that was the Omnibus Road Repair Act that had planned to make short-term repairs to approximately 25 of our roads, which were in particularly bad shape due to an accumulation of adverse conditions and other factors. At that time, the board fought hard for and won the right to pass on the final list of roads that would be repaired pursuant to the bond. Since that time, there has been a fair amount of substantive conversation between the Board of Legislators and the ninth floor, as well as the fifth floor, which is the Department of Public Works and Transportation. And Schedule A was created as a result. Either 15 or 16 of these roads were from the original list of 25. I believe 9 of them were from the list of additional 15 that Legislator Kaplowitz put in the mix. And there were 3 that the administration had put on the maybe list that we moved up to the list with the rest of them, including Seven Bridges Road in Newcastle and Welcher Avenue in Peekskill, both of which have PCI ratings below 40, and Murray Avenue in Larchmont, for which there has been a lot of complaint and a lot of universal realization that that stretch of road is horrible. As I said, this list really was the result of a lot of hard work and collaboration among a lot of people. I hope we will not have a need for a bond like this next year, but we did need it for various reasons this year. This will help fill in the gaps for many of our constituents for the medium term. So therefore, I urge my colleagues to support this tonight so the work can begin, and with the prospect of asphalt plants closing as early as mid-November, obviously time is of the essence.
Thank you. Yes, we will literally be filling the gaps. And
Excuse the pun, Mr. Chairman.
no problem. Do we have any comment at this particular point? The hour is getting late. I just do want to, Mr. Jenkins.
It's not halftime yet, so we're good. Thank you. The only comment that I would raise on this particular item, again, is that this particular act for road repairs that are needing to meet the standard of a road repair versus an operational expense, I would hope that we're not trying to sell to individuals that the modifications that are on this list are going to address any of the real long-term problems, specifically those roads that have really awful PCI ratings, because this is it's not enough money to do that. On our agenda this evening, we did receive, for example, I believe Halsted Avenue as a separate act that really would make the threshold. I mean, it's going to be a full bond act that will do the road repair, taking out the jewelry, et cetera. These are, what was explained to us was that this is a combined effort to do more than pothole repair, but doing some milling and paving, but not quite the same standard that they would do for a long stretch of road. And $5 million sounds like a lot, but for the number of roads that are on this list, it just isn't the case. And I certainly think that this particular item cannot be sold at a level that looks like we're really doing the infrastructure work that Chair Shimsky worked so hard to make sure that gets done, and the members around, all of the members, no matter what side of the aisle are, to try to do for their specific municipalities. This is as you said, Mr. Chairman, just now, filling the gaps, but will not be doing major repaving on all of these roads, without having the full scope of work done according to the commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Colleagues, I do want to thank Ms. Shimsky, the entire legislature, staff, and the county executive for working hard on this item. Sometimes good legislation takes a little while, but more importantly, the people of Westchester will benefit from roads that will be in better shape because of this. So with that said, we will take the previous long roll call.
Long roll call.
Long roll call? Long roll call, please.
Ms. Borgia?
Yes.
Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Mr. Boykin?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow? Mr. Gelfarb? Mr. Harkam?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
No.
Mr. Mazzano? Ms. Marcotte?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
15-1. Motions, resolutions, call of the districts.
Colleagues, have Ms. Borgia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add the name of Gerda Cohen, who was a Osling resident who died at 93 last week. She was a Holocaust survivor, social worker, an activist, and author. She was really an awesome woman. Thank you.
Ms. Parker?
Yes, thank you. It was a rough summer in my district. We lost a number of pillars of our community, and one that I wanted to mention in particular hasn't been living in the district for some time, but certainly somebody that all of us in Westchester know and love, Joan Rivers. She was a Larchmonter and considered herself a Westchester girl, and said that if she hadn't had the gumption to go into the city and throw her lot into show business, she would have ended up being a very frustrated dentist's wife in Westchester. So with that, I would like her to be recognized.
Or a legislator, but
Yes.
you have,
I think everybody should be on Joan Rivers.
I think probably that would, sir, for sure, of course. Mr. Jenkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to join Mr. Mazzano and Mr. Singh that was a write-in opportunity this evening.
One of the additions?
It's
Excellent.
Thank you. In addition, on call of the districts, Mr. Chairman, I know that we had a committee of the whole to discuss the casino, the ice casino contract with the American Skating. And I know I have written a letter to follow up with that with the appropriate committees as we continue to digest this. The particular item, as you brought it in front of the committee, after holding it over in the Board of Acquisition and Contract, there was considerable conversation, and I do not believe we received any of the material that we asked for to move forward with. I think that it's a significant problem, and having just resolved a similar action or similar legal action in this, I was hopeful that we would not have to go down that path again. What I'm going to continue to do is ask for the committee, the appropriate committees of the board to look at that contract. Just so we have a clear understanding, there's a much longer statute of limitations on a contract that's executed to continue to follow that up. As we continue to have the conversations about what to do with, it's in the best county's interest of Playland, a contract being let that at minimum probably should have had its own RFP for that particular thing is a concern. So I just wanted to raise that on the record, and again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Boykin?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add to the memorial resolution Bill Bradley, who died September 4th. He was a White Plains resident, longtime civic leader, active in politics and community affairs. He dedicated his life to justice, community involvement, equal opportunity. He chaired the Brotherhood Breakfast where all faith and members of the community came together to share common values and hopes. He received the Brotherhood Award himself in 1966. He died, he was 91 years old. He was a Cub Scout master, founder of a neighborhood association, captain of the community chess, vice president of the White Plains Lodge of B'nai B'rith, chairman of the White Plains Anti-Defamation League. He was also a district leader, former chairman of the White Plains Democratic Party, just an outstanding civic leader in White Plains.
Wonderful. Maybe many of us would like to join you on.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add my name to Mr. Williams' candidate of Lacey Johnson, who was a Mount Vernon district leader and very active in all causes to help needy people in the city of Mount Vernon, and died rather tragically after a long bout of lung cancer. He was never a smoker.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to briefly stand to put on the record that Lacey Johnson is a friend. He worked for the Department of Social Services in Westchester County, retiring after 38 years of service as a senior caseworker, someone who was dedicated to people, understanding that though he was an employee, that his job was more than just coming to work. It was about making sure that he had impact on the lives of those clients that he was serving as a county employee. Also very active in the community in many, many charitable events and charitable organizations. As a matter of fact, he was the person who encouraged me to get involved in politics and to run for city council, and was my co-campaign manager when my first run for a public office. He was a tremendous person, a family man, a true father and a family man, and he will surely be missed. And I wanted to put that on the record because he was a great person. Thank you.
As described in former employee, I think we all should obviously go on that one and enjoy honoring his service for sure. Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to be added to Mr. Maisano's memorial resolution for Harry Sims as well.
Okay, excellent. We have first time around for anybody else, colleagues. Otherwise, Mr. Jenkins, I know that your hand was up, I think, for... Oh, okay. Very good. Any others? All right. Why don't we rise for a moment of silence in honor of those we have noted the passing of this evening. It's time to accept a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I move that we adjourn this meeting and reconvene on our regularly scheduled meeting of September 22nd, 2014 at 7 p.m.
Ms. Borgia?
Ms. Borgia?
I'm sorry?
Just aye.
Oh, aye, sorry.
Mr. Testa? Mr. Maisano?
That's so much fun.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye. And just so everyone know, we are not meeting tomorrow, but we are meeting Wednesday at 10 a.m. on the just released or soon to be released report from the Housing Monitor. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening. We are adjourned. Jim, thank you.